Hey guys, welcome to my Geek Rant. So today I'm going to be reviewing Heir to the Jedi, the new novel in the Star Wars continuity, written by Kevin Hearn. Now, at first I thought this was going to be a book taking place after Return of the Jedi, which probably would have made it a little bit more interesting because originally I thought that would be the case because we're getting these new movies. Maybe we'll get novels that lead up into those movies, but they wanted to make it something that was in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, which is where the Leia comics and the Vader comic and the Star Wars comic is doing right now with Marvel. So I guess they're staying within that universe for now. But I think this would have been a lot better if it was within that time period. It would have made it a bit more interesting because I didn't really feel this book was that great. I don't think it was bad. Okay, when I first read it, it was kind of boring. I didn't really like what I was reading. It felt more like it was just like going to planet, and it was like mission giving, I guess, if that makes sense. But the missions that Luke was going on wasn't as interesting as as you would want to read in a Star Wars novel. Also, I thought this would have been more about, it was in a sense about his progression as a Jedi, but I really thought we were going to dive in, deep into him becoming a Jedi. For instance, there's a sequence where, by the way, this is a spoiler review. All my reviews are spoilers, so sorry if you don't want to know what's going on. I'm going to talk about it. He finds a lightsaber from an old Clone Wars veteran who died. I forget what species he was. No, I think he was a Rhodian. And in the original expanded universe, which they still might keep, we don't know that for sure. He actually learns how to build his own lightsaber through Obi-Wan Kenobi's journal on Tatooine. Now he finds a lightsaber from this old, Clone Wars veteran, and he opens it up and figures out how lightsabers are made. Which, stuff like that happens, which is okay, I guess, but I would prefer it being his own journey. Which is kind of what this is about him finding his own way within the Force versus having a mentor or anything like that. Which brings up some new characters. For instance, there's the two secondary characters that are in this is a Giffen named Dressel and a human named Nakari. We are first introduced to Nakari, she's probably my favorite character in the whole novel. She's actually a love interest for Luke Skywalker, and I don't know if anyone else got this who's read it, but she kind of reminded me of a mix between that girl from the cafe scene in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, mixed in with Marlene from The Last of Us, but with a British accent, because she's this pretty character, and I don't know, I have a thing for black girls with British accents. But she was awesome. I liked her little quips she had with Luke, and the little story they had between them. I thought that was actually really well done, and it actually did help with his progression as becoming a Jedi, because there is a sequence. Again, I'm telling you guys, I'm spoiling this book, so literally I'm about to drop a big spoiler right now, so go away if you don't want to know. But at the end of the novel, she of course dies, and Luke has that experience. He doesn't actually see her die, but he feels her die in the Force, and that's the first time he's actually used the Force to do something like that. And he actually does feel the rage of the dark side boiling up in him, but he chooses not to use it. He calms himself down, even though he feels this insurmountable power within him that he would love to use to avenge her death. Which I felt that I think sequences like that worked really well for the Heir to the Jedi series, and that was part of the second half of the book. The first half, once they meet Dressel the Giffen, I think the book gets much better because it gets more focused, I suppose. And Dressel was really interesting too. It's the Giffen are the species that are mathematicians. They're basically droids, but sentient beings who can calculate math calculations as fast as or even faster than droids. She even says that R2-D2 is competent enough after a while, even though R2 is a droid who can calculate things that quickly. She can do that very quickly. But yeah, she even helps him with the way of the Force because she calculates how, for instance, Luke is trying to the part with the noodle where he was trying to force move or telekinetically move the noodle. Dressel kind of equates it to math and saying well, maybe you shouldn't be trying to move the noodle itself. Maybe you're supposed to be moving the Force around it. And then he learns the practical sense of the Force and the emotional part of the Force, because since he had this this thing with Nakari, potentially love, like what he was starting to feel for her, he found the strength within that, which actually does come up with you know, his progression as a Jedi and Return of the Jedi, is that love and redemption is what helped him overcome. But yeah, he got that from her. He got the emotional side from Nakari. He got the mathematical, practical way from Drussel, which was pretty neat, I thought. But yeah, overall, I felt like the book could have been a little bit more concise. Now, it was well written. It wasn't like it was poorly written or anything like that. It's just that the plotting mechanics, I felt, could have been done a little bit better. Also, the book is pretty short, so it's not that hard to read at all, which makes sense because Kevin Hearn, the author, he actually has a background in novellas, which are shorter novels. I didn't really take issue with that. I'm fine with shorter novels if that's the case, as long as they're good. But this one wasn't as concise. Like, for it being a shorter novel, it should have been more concise. Like, I felt like some of those beginning missions, like, they should have gotten into the aspect with Drussel and the Empire chasing him and stuff like that. But it does feel like these storylines are getting a little bit repetitive because we had the Empire chasing the rebels in Tarkin. I know that's what's going to be happening with Lords of the Sith, that Vader's going to be chasing some other rebel sect. So yeah, I hope that they steer away from, I mean, I know that's basically what it is, the Empire versus rebels, but for it to be like a chase thing where they were chasing them between worlds is getting a little bit I guess not tiresome, but getting a little bit repetitive. Also, on my original review of his preview stuff, I had a criticism against Kevin Hearn that he referenced Star Wars too much. Like, for instance, in the beginning, he talks about the Tashi station and like the power converters, which was like really like forced in there. And then of course the last line of the book was a reference to Star Wars as well. So I feel like it could have had less of that, of the reference. Like, that's a big thing too at the EU, is that they always are referencing the original movies just to be like, hey, we're a Star Wars book, you know. But like, I feel like that could have been taken out and just been a story on its own. But as a story on its own, I don't know if you guys really need to read it. I don't know how much more. Like I said before, the reason I like the EU or the previous EU Legends now, or just the expanded materials besides the movies, is that it usually informs the character. It usually makes them more rich. This one I don't think was as successful as doing it. It does it a little bit, but I think it could have done better at it. Like with Tarkin, we got more insight into him, and then for instance, for me, when the Rebels series came out and he was in it, it was like, oh yeah, that feels like Tarkin from the novel, and I have all this other information about him that informs his character now. With Luke, it wasn't like I had this big revelation of like what was going on with him, and the stuff that was, I guess, like that, I wasn't interested in, like the lightsaber stuff with the Rodian and all that stuff. But generally, I think this is a good, as a rating, I would say this is a good one-time read. Kind of, it's like a 2.5 star is what I would say. So you can kind of skip it if you want to, but if you're interested even at all, like you like Luke Skywalker or whatever, then yeah, you should read it. But you're probably only going to read it once. You're not going to like keep it on your bookshelf and keep reading it over and over. So maybe it's like a borrow. Maybe I'll say that. I say it's a borrow. It's between a borrow and a buy, if that makes sense. But that's it, guys. Thank you for watching my review. I'll catch you guys on the next one. As always, peace, love, and may the Force be with you. Always.
They both held immense power with their use of the Force, Yoda as the Avatar of Light, Bane as the Nexus of the Dark.
No, why are you mowing your lawn right now? I'm recording a Let's Play.